feel like we should be like the Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Friday, June the 27th. My goodness. And we're excited to have you on Inside the Game here. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wengler. And we're excited to have you wherever you're watching near and far. And I think we got the music timed up pretty good there. We will have a new intro video coming up here on Monday. We will. It is my promise. It's like a guarantee now on Mondays, a new intro. From the mothership, by the way. I'll call it that.
Mothership.
I think I heard that once upon a time. I'm like, what's the mothership or something? I don't know. Anyways, we will have a new intro hopefully here on Monday. But we're excited to have you wherever you're watching. And Michael says good morning. And Michael, good morning back to you. We appreciate you. And something that me and Nathan were talking about as part of this Inside the Game, we will be establishing our own Facebook page. That'll actually happen this weekend as well. Because we want to be able to create a space that's outside of just the National Soccer Network that allows our viewers to be able to be engaged with us, ask questions, do things like that. Because the problem is that as a big network as we're going to be, and we are, you can get lost in all of that. So we'll create our own Instagram, Twitter handles, and all that kind of stuff. You know, and Dan Patrick refers to ESPN as the mothership. So there you go.
They are.
But it's been a great week. We've had a lot of really good conversations here this week talking about U.S. men's national team. We'll dive into some of that today. But there's been and of course our dog starts to didn't bark up until he's been down here this entire morning just chilling. Now he's going to bark in the middle of the show. Yeah, just do your thing, dog.
Yep.
But
he wants to get his opinion in there. I get it.
it's like
he's got something to say.
He's got something to say. We ran out of a hard food, right? Our dog is a very picky eater, by the way. If he's not trying to get on our table to eat our food, he needs to eat his food a certain way. And I guess I can be appreciative of that because I'm also very picky, too, about what I want to eat. I'm a steak and lobster kind of a person. If I could eat that 6 days a week, I would. On the seventh day, I would rest. But he's a very picky eater. And so we'll put hard food in his bowl and won't put soft food and he won't eat it. We'll take hard food with soft food. He'll eat it all day long. But we ran out of hard food like 2 days ago. We just didn't get a chance to get to the store. We buy this stuff in bulk and you got to go to whatever. And we didn't have it. So for 2 days, he's eaten his soft food only. But last night he didn't eat it because he's probably sick and tired of just having soft food.
He's going on a starvation strike. He's going on a starvation strike.
This little turd doesn't want to eat his soft food now, man. It's like, come on. So we're going to put this hard food in the bowl, and he's going to eat the crap out of that. And then in 2 days, he's going to go back to being, I need my hard and my soft food. So I just, damn dog. But anyways, I think it was Tuesday. I think Tuesday we were talking about some stuff, and I had mentioned during the show something about Taylor Swift, and you decided to put that into YouTube as YouTube short. And first and foremost, I want to formally and publicly apologize for saying that you should not want to date Taylor Swift. Okay, I think that's first and foremost.
I'm wondering who this got you in trouble with. That's my question.
Nobody. I have a feeling that Swifties are going to come after me because I said you shouldn't date her.
Oh, they might. They might. Yeah, you might be on the hook now.
So I think it's important to already have that apology on deck and ready to go. I'd have meant nothing by it. If I wasn't married and I didn't have 3 children, a dog, and a gecko, I would totally be interested in Taylor Swift.
Fair. It's fair. Fair. But I'm guessing you want me to go back and cut that part up so that I can make sure to post it when they do come for you eventually. Yeah, Michael, I don't know if the Swifties is the group to be messing with, but hey, man, he put it out there, and I was like, hey, all right, there it goes on social media.
And I didn't. And to be fair, I don't know if it was like a dig per se at her. I just think that it's like, I mean, and yeah, she writes a lot more songs that are not about the guys she dates, but again, every guy she's ever dated, she has in fact written a song about. So it's just a matter of time before there's a song called Kelsey. I don't know.
Breakups normally, like, all right, they might, say a certain thing or whatever about you, but they ain't gonna write a song that's gonna go,
Platinum.
Platinum. Yeah, exactly. That's a little bit different,
But I did want to put that out there just in case, because they do have the Swifties do have a lot of power in the world, and we want to make sure that's all, we're all doing this for the good. And so yes, my daughters and my wife, yeah, we love Taylor Swift as a whole. So I think that's we do we love her.
It was a joke, guys. All right,
please. It was that totally. I just want to make sure I put that out there. I have not been contacted by her people, by the way. I want to make sure that's important. Nobody from her team has contacted us.
Okay. All right.
It's just I had to make sure I put that out
there.
Put
a bag over your head and throw you in a trunk or anything?
No. That, I mean, I've had that happen, but not from Taylor Swift people. But
I pissed off other people, but not those people. So we haven't gotten there quite yet. I feel like if we make those people mad and they come after us, though, that might raise our podcast a few notches, though. Because people love to hate us then at that point because we're anti-Swifties.
I know.
Crap the whole show around that, just hating on Taylor Swift.
It's crazy because I don't. People say things like, "Oh, I hate." We try to tell our kids, and we this happens a lot. You're like, "Oh, I hate." No, you don't hate that. Like nobody. There's things I dislike, but hate is a strong word. But somehow hate is a thing we talk about quite a bit in this world, and it leads us into kind of like the mailbag kind of conversations and questions that we get, or comments that we get throughout any given week in regards to the show. And so why not have a Mailbag Friday where we address the comments or questions coming in from all the different platforms that we get them from. And I know you've got some that you thought would be good ones to talk about this morning. And so let's get into that, my guy.
Yeah, there's just a lot of interesting stuff, and especially since, we're talking about the U.S. men's national team quite a bit. A lot of people have been getting involved on those conversations, but I did post a lot about the Gold Cup and obviously our conversations about that. I think their matchup with Haiti coming up, or not Haiti, Costa Rica coming up, I think is one of the bigger international matches that we've seen for this team in some time. I know we're looking back at the Nations League and playing Canada and obviously the disappointment against Panama, but that in a lot of ways, those games to me signified a meltdown of we had the best players out there. We had our 11. We had Christian Pulisic, who was playing in the Nations League at that point, was playing for the country, and it just simply it didn't look pretty. It looked ugly. They weren't moving the ball well. They were giving up possession. They weren't doing anything with the possession they did have. Through and through, it was bad. And so we came into this Gold Cup understanding that obviously Christian Pulisic wasn't going to be there. He was going to take some time away. We knew Weston McKennie wasn't going to be there. We just recently saw the return of Tyler Adams, although he's been dealing with that knee injury. So a lot of respect to that guy for battling it out and going out there. But a lot of our bulk players that would make it our best side or A side are not there, and we know this, right? So this is the B side, this is the C side, whatever you want to call it. So this upcoming matchup against Costa Rica is going to be massive because if this side can prove to at least get to the semis, at least get close, right? I don't know if my expectation is quite there for them to win the Gold Cup. I know that the tournament has been formatted for American success for a long time, and it has been. I don't know if it's possible, but we posed the question the other day, are they meeting expectations? That was something that I posted on social media just to get out to the people like, hey, from what you've seen out of this team through this Gold Cup, which is, the last international competition before we reach the World Cup. There would be some friendlies and everything else mixed in there. But Joel responds on TikTok. He goes, I think the roster they brought, they are meeting expectations. Let me read that again. I think with the roster they brought, they are meeting expectations. I would tend to think so too. Now, it's important to note they haven't gotten a signature win. Okay. Beating Saudi Arabia, beating Haiti by a goal. Okay, Trinidad and Tobago 5-0, whatever, but it's Trinidad and Tobago. I wouldn't necessarily consider any of those signature wins, but I do think not only a win over Costa Rica, but then a win over Canada or Mexico, or, well, I guess Mexico's not in it anymore, but they are in it. Sorry. Canada or Mexico or someone else along those lines. Like I said, if they can get to the final, then we're starting to look at this team in a much different light because we can realize, all right, now we can sprinkle in the likes of Pulisic and the McKennies and maybe this team has an opportunity to actually do something on down the line. Maybe Pochettino has figured it out. So I don't know. I think they are meeting expectations, but I will say not quite yet. They have to win one of the elimination games. They have to beat Costa Rica. They have to make some noise in order for me to say that conclusively. But for now, at least they're grinding out wins. I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, so I think understanding what a signature win is probably important first. And the question I have for you is when we talk about a signature win, okay, and granted, we haven't played against anybody to this point who would be considered to be a signature win or signature team, but what would quantify a signature team in your opinion?
A quality side.
Okay, so quality. Obviously the FIFA ranks teams in the world, right? Countries in the world, and the latest men rankings. And this is that they're going to do the next update here on July the 9th. So the last one was done on April the 3rd. Argentina is currently listed first in the world. Okay, you've got Spain, France, England, Brazil, Netherlands, Portugal, Belgium, Italy, Germany, all in the top 10. Croatia, Morocco, Uruguay, Colombia, and Japan are the next 5. And then right there at 16 is Team USA. Mexico was 17th. They actually moved up 2 spots from 19 from the previous world rankings. Costa Rica is down at 54. And so obviously, based on that alone, would you consider Costa Rica a signature win if we beat them coming up here?
No, not necessarily. Okay. I mean, they beat Mexico, but no, not necessarily.
Okay, so Costa Rica, what you wouldn't consider. Now, obviously, Mexico, being that they're 17 and we're 16, we would say that would be a signature win. You're right in the top 25. Now, Canada as well, if we look at Canada on this list, I believe they're right now ranked around the 30s. They're ranked 30th in the world. They were up 1 spot from 31 from the last one. I don't see them moving a whole lot. Now, granted, they've had some success, right? And these rankings are widely based off of historical data, not like the last 2 weeks. It's the overall body of work. And do I think the United States men's national team is 16th in the world? No, I do not, by the way. I think that in itself is a falsity. And I'm actually curious what people think about that. That's a great question we should ask. Do you think the United States men's national team is 16th in the world? Do you think it's an honest...
I can already tell you what they're going to respond with.
But I think it's a great question to ask. Is the United States men's national team the 16th ranked country in the world? Is that accurate? Looking at everything you know about the game of soccer right now, and granted, again, I know it's based on, it's like the world rankings in golf, right? You're not going to rank, Tiger Woods is going to, okay, if he loses a tournament win, you're not going to bounce him out of the top, okay? It takes a number of things to happen for someone to get bounced out of the number 1 world ranking, right? So it's going to take a couple minutes. This isn't like, a 17-game season where, one victory, one loss can actually have you overtake somebody or something, right? There's a body of work that has to be outlaid. And that's true in the international environment as well, because you go for periods of time we don't play, right? So you don't play for 2 months and then you play again, right? So to it's got to be based off of a full year. It's got to be based off of a couple of years, right? It's a body of work. And so, do I think Argentina is the number 1 ranked team in the world? Absolutely. Do I think? Yes, I do. Yes, right? They won the World Cup. They're the reigning World Cup champions. Right, so when you have that good going for you, I mean, Brazil. If you look at this top 10, again, Brazil is ranked 5th. Now, my wife probably has an opinion on that because, in fact, she was born and raised in Brazil, right? Spain, France, England. There's your top 5, right? Now, Brazil, you could argue, could be number 2, 3, or 4. I think there's an argument for that. There's an argument for France and Spain and all. There's an argument for all of them. I think you could take any one of those 2 through 5 and basically say, yeah, any one of them could be second. But so I think it's important that when we start talking about what a signature win even looks like in the first place, understanding what that even means. And so when we talk about expectations, yes, first off, the Gold Cup, it's almost kind of like that She Believes Cup. It's like, is it does it mean something? Is it mean? I mean, if we put it up there and measure it against other cups, the Euro Cup, we measured against how does that? It doesn't come close to measuring to that, And so, the CONCACAF Champions Cup, like that, the Nations Cup, whatever I call it, Nations thing. What is that in comparison to this cup? Where does it compare? I think that's important to kind of talk about too. But from my perspective, yes, have the U.S. men's national team met expectations? Yes, they have. Have they exceeded them? Time will tell. And when it comes to a signature victory, I don't think there's a team in this tournament outside of Mexico that would even qualify as a signature win. You know what I mean? So, and again, maybe even then it wouldn't count because those two teams, when they play each other, it's just a dogfight. And to be fair, it's like a toss-up. Anyone could win. It's like, it's just like, does skill really play into that one? No, it's just whoever wants it more. And for some reason, if every game could be like Mexico, Mexico, United States, like we'd be thoroughly entertained. And more importantly, we would actually get what we want out of the players. which is like this awesome look and feel of what soccer should be like from the United States standpoint. But it's a good question. It's a great comment. But I just don't think I don't think that. I don't think that we can really use this measuring stick of what this Gold Cup even is. It's kind of hard to even put in a quantifying measurement on it because of all the other things that you can watch or be part of.
Speaking of comments, I guess I should just drop in the live ones that we're getting right now. First of them coming from Michael saying FIFA rankings are flawed. And I mean, I'd agree with that. The truth is that a lot of it's based on like historical stuff, not necessarily the team's current form. They are inherently flawed. There are certain things that they don't factor in, which I think is interesting. There's certain teams like you were talking about that are way lower on that list that should be way higher on that list. And there, at one point, I think the U.S. was ranked 11th in the world or something, so just outside of the top 10, which I don't know. I mean, in the way we've seen that team over the course of, the last couple of months, certainly doesn't seem that way. What I will say, though, if they can win 4 straight games after losing 4 straight, at the very least, that'll do enough, I feel like, to the American fan to like instill a little bit of confidence back in us that maybe this team can be something. Would I call it signature beating Costa Rica? No, I wouldn't come that close. I would say it's good that they're moving in the right direction, but I wouldn't call that signature. And it kind of parlays me into another comment that we got. And I thought it was, we talk about marketing young American stars, and I think we want to see that. I think everybody wants to see that at the end of the day. That's, because that's what's really going to get the American fans bought in. That's what's really going to get the American fans interested in what exactly we have on the docket. By the way, Bakos reaches in with Liga MX is the craziest league. I've never actually watched the league in particular, but we had a team recently that came up to Flint to take on Flint City, the Bucks from that participate in Liga MX. Atlas FC, they've been around since 1919. Man, that I was even talking about it yesterday with some of my family members. I'm like, if you ever want to get into soccer, like you should watch that match. Like if anybody tells you that soccer is not a physical sport, they're really not watching. And I didn't realize this, and you said this after the game, because it was a 1-0 game, but in terms of the action, there was plenty of it. It resembled more of a WWE match than an actual soccer match at some points. And I didn't realize that that's just how that culture works when it comes to the sport of soccer. They're very physical, they're very fiery, they're very chippy, they're very all these other things. But I mean, we saw a sea of yellow in that game. I'm surprised there was never a single red that came out. But I mean, some of the wrestling moves and some of the things that happened in it, that was fascinating to watch. But it's clear to me that, culturally speaking, they play the game much different than a lot of places do. So I thought that was a fascinating match to watch, at least on our platform.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't disagree with you on that. I think that first off, if you ever for someone that's refereed a lot of adult amateur games, and that included a lot of different varying degrees of cultures and backgrounds, you can start to pick up on just the way and the style of play, and style of play is very different in Mexico than it is in Canada and the United States, and very different in Brazil than it is here. I would actually probably argue that Brazil, in South America, like in the teams in South America and the teams that play in Central America, right? And so I think that they are very similar in a lot of ways. Again, it's these kids grow up playing almost playing with, if it's not a ball, it's wrapped up newspaper in a ball. It's T-shirts wrapped up in a ball, right? They're creating the ball that maybe they don't have access to, and all they do is play. That's all they do in the favelas in Brazil, in the alleys of Mexico City, on these little parks. I mean, there's no nets, right? They're just out there and they're learning to play the game, and a lot of times they're doing it very individually too, right? And if you notice that, if you ever watched, we watched it the other day, right? With Alice, they actually defended very, very well. I was very impressed with their defensive abilities.
Yes.
But if you notice, what they tend to do is they very physical, right? They are going to come at you, right? And they do that because they as players inside, and we talked about this in regards to, like, gotta be that little nutty goalkeeper the other day. You have to have these enforcers in the back line. Skillful players do not want to be physical. Right? They are skillful and they want to be away from the physicality. So they do everything they can to stay away and stay clear of physicality. And so it is something that you're starting to see now culturally in Mexico and in Central America, how they play, is the physical style of play is a direct result of them being around very, very good players and finding ways to get into their head. And so you're going to come at them with two cleats. You're going to come at them very physical. And I'm not saying like to be dangerous, but they're going to toe that line. Like literally toe that line. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to be very protective of their teammates, as you would imagine in any other environment. So it's really cool to see that environment and see it up close and personal. Because again, if you ever watch a very, very skillful player outside of the United States, very individualistic. They're very much about, how do I do this? And then they bring their teammates in, but about getting it back to them. And you're seeing kind of that develop, and you're seeing how this defensive mindset's changed. And they've always been physical, but it's kind of cool to see how that works out. But yeah, it's a very cool way. The style of play and the cultural play in Mexico is something is shock and awe. You see it in a lot of different arenas, especially like we saw Major Arena Soccer and saw it there as well. But the physicality is a big component of Team Mexico and what happens in as Baco said, Liga MX. So what else we got in questions?
It is amazing. It was amazing to watch, and they played the mental game really well. To your point, like, it just be little things. It'd be little things, you know what I mean? Like a little shove, little tug, little thing here or there. But the level of frustration, you could tell, was growing. And when you start to get the pushing and shoving, and when you start to get the antics after the play, they know they got you. And that's exactly what that game was. It was kind of like a, well, we got you moment. Like, well, fine, you want to lean into the physical side, you want to start doing all these other things, by all means, but we got you, So that was the part of all that I thought was really impressive. And just, again, to see how they played as one unit, because that's the component of that game. And again, that's always been one of the main critiques to people who don't really consume soccer. And the thing is about this podcast is I kind of want this to be like, and it's the way that Alexi Lalas actually explained it when he was on Cowherd's show the other day, Colin Cowherd, and of course Nick Wright was on, and they were talking about the national team. he had mentioned Nick Wright goes, and a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, this, that, and the other thing. He goes, I'm not a soccer person. You know what I mean? I don't consume this sport. This isn't really something that I follow, which I thought was really, astute of him to point out during a national show. But Alexi Lalas goes, I'm not in the business of only talking to people who know everything about soccer. Like I want to be an open book, and I want to allow people to come in to understand what the game is, and maybe with that grow an appreciation of the game. Like I could say conclusively that I've grown more of an appreciation for this game by being on this network, by having this show, by following these teams, because you just grow an appreciation not only for the simplicity of the game itself, but also the complexity of it and all the different cultures and how they all play the game differently. And again, it just gets you more and more excited for the World Cup in 2026. But that's kind of what we want the show to be. And that's why I think a matchup like that is important, and why I think it's important to show and talk about on social media, because if we want the American fans to get interested in the sport of soccer, to see that brand of soccer would make you go, okay, I could definitely watch this. And that's something, AJ, who used to do the camera stuff for us, he would talk about how soccer is not really been something that he's followed his whole life. I mean, very similar to me, but in just being in that environment, seeing those teams go at each other, seeing the bodies hit the floor, seeing all those other things, because I'm actually kind of a fan. It kind of made a fan out of me this year. So I take that with me. That's a point of pride. I feel like I made a fan this year, putting them in that environment. And I'm like, dude, that's one thing. But now imagine going to a Premier League game. Imagine going to an MLS game where it's packed out, something like that. Imagine all that. That's what would really set it over the top. In terms of your appreciation, not only for the game, but for the environment that's around it. Even the ultras that we have for some of the MLS teams here would be enough to really get you going. So when you factor in the environment, but also quality play, like we saw during that international friendly, it's fascinating to see the different styles. And what the other thing that stood out to me about that game too was how Flint City had the edge in everything. Attempts, like possession, this, that, or the other thing. And one of the strikers for the team out of Mexico, he actually did a hit local news, and all the respect in the world to this kid, because he actually went on and he embraced this interview, which I thought was impressive, because that's not an easy thing to do, man. I mean, when you're maybe learning a language and you just have to put, yourself and your face in front of the news and on a screen, that's not an easy thing to do. But he started talking about, Flint City and playing against these American sides, these American clubs. And he talked about, and I thought this was so funny, he goes, like, genetically, and he didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it my own way because I know what he was trying to say. It was genetically, they're a few steps ahead of us. And even when you look at the replays of those two teams, Flint City is bigger, they're taller, they're wider, they're all these other things, but it's the fearlessness and the ferocity that I think really didn't sit well with the Bucks. And that is, in a lot of ways, that's the Mexican culture, man. I mean, they're warriors, like they're gonna come at you. They don't care. Like they're okay hitting the ground. Like that goaltender, it was okay doing backflips and landing on his back, square on the ground, if it meant that he got to get in there and punch it away or pull it in. So soccer is a very entertaining game. That's all I'm going to say to anybody who's watching this that might be new to the sport. And again, that's part of what we do this for, is, not just the people who are well informed or who are locked in. We want to get new people to watch the sport, because then that means you might watch it on NSN, right? So you'll see how that works. So you got to watch the different cultures. You got to watch the different matchups. That's probably one of the more fun and exciting games I've ever been a part of. But another question that comes from TikTok. I talked about the United States men's national team finding its identity again. We've mentioned this in the past on this show, how there used to be a time, and it didn't mean that they were winning World Cups or anything else like that. Like they were still very much behind the powers, much like we are now. But there used to be a time for the U.S. men's national team, we knew who we were getting. We knew we were getting Clint Dempsey. We knew we were getting Landon Donovan. We knew we were getting Tim Howard. We knew we were getting who am I thinking of? Oh, goodness gracious. Josie Altidore. We knew we were getting a lot of those guys, and there's others that I didn't mention. But we knew the group that we had. Now it's kind of all over the place. And Ethan leaves a comment, and he's kind of digging into the whole development of players in the United States and how that's kind of affected the highest level. Because the difference is they used to had to fight to get to the highest level. Now they're picked at a very young age. And they're specialized so at a very young age. And the diversity of all the different clubs and all the different places that are trying to develop. And again, I talked about this, this pyramid from top to bottom, and how soccer, they have a pyramid, right? But it's a little bit more disjointed than maybe some of the other professional leagues. And I realize it's because, clubs have to contend with, or professional teams have to contend with clubs and with, colleges and everything else to get players. So it's more diverse in that way. But how do you feel about the way, players are identified now? And do you think, do you think that the path to get to the top level to play for the U.S. men's national team is kind of blurred now? I mean, how do you feel about the way not only we develop, but choose the talent that we put on the international level?
Yeah, we pick wrong. But that's not a U.S. men's national team problem. That's a problem everywhere. The problem is that every coach, every general manager in this country is a human being, and we are emotional, and we allow emotions, good, bad, or indifferent, to dictate what we do. You look what happened with the former coach, right, of the U.S. men's national team, right, Greg Berhalter. Now you can argue all day long about this, but what happened? Gio Reyna and that Berhalter thing. That's what screwed this whole thing over. It's an emotional thing. Wasn't happy with his playing time. Wasn't this back and forth. I'm not going to play you. I'm going to pull my weight. You're going to pull your weight. Then Dad gets involved. I mean, it's an emotional thing. And we could argue about how great Gio Reyna is. Nothing I've seen from Gio Reyna makes me think he's the greatest player that he thinks he is.
Yeah.
Good player. Don't argue that. But there's a reason why there is not a coach on planet Earth that does not want the best players on the field that gives you the best chance to win.
Right.
Okay, I will say that more than once. There is not a coach on planet Earth that doesn't want the best players on the field to help them win soccer games, or any sporting event for that matter. Okay? There's a reason why head coaches don't put rookies in on football teams, right? Especially at quarterback, because they're not ready. Then they might be the best player in the world, but they're not ready yet. They have to mature. They have to experience what it's like to be in that environment. There's a reason why most of your rookies in baseball go to the minors first. Get their feet wet, go through the process, learn the game the way it's supposed to play at that level. Make sure they're ready so that they don't just, spaz out and then you don't see them ever again.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a reason why. So there is something to be said. I keep saying this. There is no reason why we should have a 16-year-old player playing professional soccer in this country. None. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. None. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is purely based on putting people in the seats. Has nothing to do with development. Nothing. Sorry. If you say that, you're lying through your teeth. There is not a team in this world that needs a 16-year-old player to make the difference. There isn't. And, you're seeing it with the likes in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark's not 16, but think about this, right? This is the women's basketball environment. It's a league that's subsidized by the NBA, right? They cannot, up until maybe a year ago, they were not sustainable on their own. They needed to be subsidized by the NBA, okay? And you've got Caitlin Clark, who's come in, who is by far and large the best player in the WNBA, arguably, right? We can argue about it. I don't think it's even close. No, so what's happening? The entire WNBA on all these teams are attacking the best thing to ever happen to the WNBA. Think about that for a second. These women who have been fighting to have more money, fighting for more fans, fighting for all those things are actually happening. They're happening right now. And what are they doing? They're poking her eye out on the court. And they're bashing her because why? Does that happen in any other league? Does that happen? Why is that happening? It's because, again, it's like everything else. It's like coaches. We are emotional. We are human beings. We do a lot of these things based on how we feel. Not that there's anything wrong with making those kind of decisions, but look at what it could do. Right, the big picture, Caitlin Clark in the WNBA for the next 10 years. Big picture of that. What does it do for the league? Tiger Woods changed golf. Tiger Woods changed the PGA golf environment. It became a massive thing because of one person. Think about that. Caitlin Clark is that one person who is going to change the entire, and as Hari started doing it in the WNBA, instead of attacking her, which maybe some of that too is showmanship, but just to be fair, I don't think it's all, I think it's like, you're a rookie and we don't like that, and we've been here before you, and this is our turf, and it's like a turf war.
It's the same thing as Jordan, like you got, like physically you got to take him out of the game. You got to try and get in his head to try and take him out of his game so he doesn't hang 50 on you. I mean, that's that's why they had the old Jordan rules here in Detroit. Now, mind you, he wasn't.
It's on the court though. Do it on the court. Do it on the court though. Do it on the court. Don't do it in the media. Do it in the court. Build this thing up because your league needed it. Your league needed a Caitlin Clark, and so. Because and again, sometimes you need that. Sometimes it just we talk about it all the time. You just need something to kind of help build it. It could be a team, it could be a player, it could be a lot of things. And that league needed a Caitlin Clark. It could have been anybody, but they needed a Caitlin Clark. Remember, and if you think about this, and I'm going to probably I'm trying to blank on her name, but she played for UConn, Connecticut, great player. I want to say like Taurasi. Is that right? Is that right?
Diana. Yep.
Yeah, Diana. Yeah, like. If we talk about like one of the best college players of all time in women's basketball, arguably it would be her. Mm-hmm. She was a very good basketball player. Obviously, UConn, unbelievable women's basketball program, and she changed the game. But she, for some reason, did not like have the same kind of like marketability as Caitlin Clark. Mm-hmm. I mean, this gritty player, physical. Hard nose, whatever, just for some reason, just could not. And maybe you could say, well, hey, if it weren't for a Diana Taurasi, Caitlin Clark wouldn't even exist. You could argue that. Absolutely. Like Michael Jordan, being Michael Jordan, maybe there's LeBron James doesn't come as a result of that. You know what I mean? Maybe there's not basketball players around this country going, I want to be like Michael Jordan. And then you've got LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. Everyone's like, I want to be like Bryant. I want to be like James. So these players who come along, what do they create this. And so when we talk about the identity of our team and talk about like the U.S. men's national team, and more importantly, like talent identification, we as individuals have got to stop making our decisions based on how that player makes us feel. Right? Oh my gosh, man. I don't, because if I made my decisions solely on how people make me feel, I don't think I would even be in business.
I'd still be your friend, though, right?
If people, how you make me feel. Dude, we talk about it. Just the conversations I've had just in the last 24 hours alone, man, would make somebody, if my feelings, I don't have room for my feelings when it comes to these things. There are things that absolutely that I have to, from a business standpoint, have to weigh. But
you have to separate your feelings a lot of times.
Well, you do. Okay, I don't like you. I don't like you.
You don't like me?
No, I'm saying if I'm a coach, there are lots of players that I just didn't like. I didn't like them. I didn't like the way they talked.
I don't like you either.
I didn't like the way that they handled themselves. I didn't like a lot of things. But they were really good soccer players.
Yeah.
They're really good soccer players.
Yep.
I didn't like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I didn't like me.
Yeah.
So it's like
you have to be able to observe that talent, though. And that's that's something that, even when you look at Caitlin Clark, and I love that you bring up that example, because people see her as the perfect American girl story. When you talk to the people who have been involved in the game, people, Dalton Shetler is a good example. He's a broadcaster for Michigan State. You hear these stories of, oh, wow, okay. So not only is she very talented, but she also takes to the other side of the game, the trash talk side of the game, much like MJ did, much like any of those other. Like, she is loud and she is proud. But the truth is that you earn that, right? There's this whole thing we call like the talent to drama ratio. You can only be as dramatic as you are talented. You can't go beyond that point. Yep. So you're willing as a coach, I feel like, a little bit to put up with some of that stuff, as long as you are able to go out and produce on a level that is, again, above and beyond what everybody else is doing. That's where that balance comes into play. You're almost kind of allowed to do that. CC is a good example, like if Messi or Ronaldo or any of those other guys, if they wanted to be that way, absolutely, you have the right to. You've earned the right to. But those players are few and far between. That's the difference.
And that's why there are, for every player that on the U.S. men's national team right now, there are probably 2 or 3 players that aren't there because they pissed somebody off.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's what it is. I mean,
sure.
we're in love with Christian Pulisic. You're telling me that there's not another player in the United States right now that could have the equal amount of talent as a Christian Pulisic? I find that hard to believe. I do. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. We just don't know whether they exist. We don't see them. And why is that? Because somewhere along the lines, and you think about it, who's Christian Pulisic's dad, right? He was involved in soccer. His name is well known. So you and I both know that if you're a club, think about this in the United States, okay? Think about clubs in the United States, all right? Just recently, Michigan Jaguars announced Stephen Clark, former Houston Dynamo goalkeeper, right? Well known. He went to Oakland University. And he's back here in Michigan, living here now. He's joined their coaching staff. Now, what does that do for that club? If you're a goalkeeper and you're like, oh my gosh, there's an MLS former goalkeeper coaching at the Jaguars, where do I want to go? I want to go to the Jaguars. Mm-hmm. It's a great pickup for the Jags. Great pickup. But now, think about this. You're walking in, right? You're walking into that club, and Stephen Clark is there. And you've got your parents, and they're all walking in. You and your kids are walking in together, and Stephen Clark recognizes Dad. Right? Yeah. Oh, hey, Steve, how are we doing? We're talking, and then, hey, this is my son, Joey. Joey, talk to, and Joey's good. Joey's a good player. Mm-hmm. But because Stephen Clark knows Joey's dad, Joey might get that spot over Sam, whose dad doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right? That's how that works. And and again, that's not, I don't know if that's true or not in this environment. I'm just giving that as an example, but that's soccer.
Yeah.
You don't think Christian Pulisic got opportunities because his dad was coming in and walking around? Like, hey, guys, this Mr. Pulisic, how are we doing? Christian absolutely got those. Now, did Christian sustain it by being a great player? Absolutely he did. Mm-hmm. But for every Christian Pulisic out there, there's probably 3 or 4 kids who were in the same environment who who missed out because they didn't know somebody. And that is our problem in this country. That's our problem in this country. And if you piss me off, if your parents piss me off, there are college coaches that will not allow a player to come play for them because their parents are too involved. Now, I understand that, but risk reward. Is there a player that right now that parents are so overly involved that is creating a problem for that player to get opportunities? Yeah, especially in college, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, do I think that there are players out there that could be on the U.S. men's national team that aren't getting a fair shake? Oh my God, there's so many. Mm-hmm. There's so many. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then you think about that too in the women's game. Argue the same thing.
Right.
It's not just a men's problem, it's a women's problem.
Yeah.
It's a soccer problem in this country. The best players are not on the field. They're not. There's no way they are. Because we are so big. We have so many players playing soccer in this country right now. I find it hard to believe that the best players are being invited and the best players are showing up. And because it is as much about who you know than what you know. And that's our current situation, And so the Gio Reyna, Who was his dad? Right? Claudio Reyna. Michael Bradley. Whose dad was Michael Bradley? It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, we can, if Landon Donovan, I don't think he has kids, but if Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, Clint Dempsey's kids just started playing soccer tomorrow, do you think that we wouldn't see their kids in 10 years playing?
Yeah.
That's a Dempsey kid. Holy crap. Now we're bringing that kid in.
Right.
Like, we'd be dumb not to give that kid a look.
And nepotism, nepotism exists in the NBA, it exists in the MLB, it exists in all these other leagues. I get it. Like we see it, and when you have a great player or when you have a really good player, the first expectation is, okay, so the kid's going to take after dad. Like, right? Like the gifts are there, the genetics are there, so obviously he's going to
mom.
be or mom, either way, right? Good pull. But you expect that they're going to be there, but that exists in all different types of leagues. But I think in soccer it's unique because, and I even mentioned this on the podcast before, and there were a lot of people that kind of gravitated towards this. It's not that you're just automatically going to be given it because of nepotism, but nepotism plays into it. And the other side of it is too, right? If you have the resources, just that pathway to the top level is going to be so much easier and so much more accessible to you than any other player. Like we talked about, the leaving talent on the chopping block in the United States. Everybody that we've talked to, I think, has simultaneously said yes. Like they've all nodded along to that, and they said yes, we agree. The best talent, at least the ones that we could actually develop into being something and representing our country at the end of the line, is really not being represented because of that. Again, someone's going to tell you you're good enough if the price point is where it needs to be. And that's inherently the problem. And yeah, there's some of that in basketball with the AAU circuit. There's some of that in baseball. There's some of that all over the place. But I think soccer, it's more the Wild West than any other sport in the United States. And I actually had someone yesterday, another one of my broadcast buddies, that's like, hey, man, like I'm watching your stuff that you're doing in soccer. He goes, I need you to just send me a breakdown, like a pyramid or like a tiered system. I just need you to send me something and just show me what the soccer space is in the US. And I'm like, okay, I can send it to you, but like this breakdown is going to get really messy really quick because of how many different levels, how many different teams, how many different clubs. Like I wish I could tell you that there was more of a succinct method of like getting players in and then having them develop until the top level and that we're finding the best ones out there. But there's so much going on all over the place. But people also hated when we said that soccer is oversaturated in this country. But that's a conversation for another time. I got another really good comment here on TikTok, though, from user 7634700248556. And it goes like this.
Unique.
Yep, it is very unique. We posed the question the other day, will the MLS ever catch up to the bigger leagues across the world, even with adding a superstar like Messi? And obviously after what David Beckham did, is there ever a situation where stars end up coming to America earlier in their career and therefore turn MLS into a viable world league that can compete with the likes of Bundesliga, the Premier League, everything else like that? And Mr. User with 17 numbers attached to his name went, no. That was his response to it. Very, very astute. So thank you for dropping that comment in, though. But what are your thoughts on that comment, JT? What do you think?
Well, I'm in agreement with it. I said before. I mean, we're not even close.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
It's wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking. It's worth talking about on a show and on a platform that we have, but I think we can all admit that it's probably not.
I think we should ask. I think we should put this out. I think we should put this out on our Twitter. Here's the thing. We talked about this. If you're a young soccer player in this country right now, playing, right, in a club environment, men's, women's, boys, girls, doesn't matter. You are hoping to one day be asked to play in the MLS or the NWSL. That's something that you're aspiring to be, okay? But if that same player was offered the opportunity to go across the pond and play for, Juventus or to play for Real Madrid, play in the Premier League, Liverpool, they would absolutely skip it. I don't think there's even a question about it. Like, okay, LA Galaxy, Liverpool. LA Galaxy, Liverpool. Okay? I'm gonna go on a limb here and say 100% of the players that are offered that would go to Liverpool.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on a limb. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. But I think it's a question we should definitely be asking our viewers. If you are a young athlete in this country or young soccer player, would you prefer, if you had the choice, not like, no, you've been offered MLS, right? Not what you want to. I'm saying if the choice was there, you were offered a contract to go to play Liverpool or a contract to play for the LA Galaxy, what would you do? Now, I'm not talking about starting lineups. I'm not talking about being a starter. I'm just saying you've been offered a contract. Liverpool, LA Galaxy. Where are you going? I think that's a great question to ask because, and they might say, well, if it depends on how I'm starting. I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, but I don't think it does. Mm-hmm. And again, you could put okay, Liverpool, you could put Chelsea, you could put, it doesn't really, I mean, you could put Wrexham maybe. I would argue that some people would rather go pay for Wrexham right now than playing the MLS. So again, asking that question right now, what would you do? And I would argue that I think the number's 100%.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I think you're lying to yourself. I think that there might be like, well, I mean, no, I mean, like legit, if that's the question, what would you do? And I don't think that they would. I don't. And to be fair, I think that too. Look at this as well. We have players who are born here, and I'll give you a good example. My wife, Brazilian, born and raised. My kids are from the United States. They were born here, but because of my wife, they have Brazilian citizenship that they could use and go get. Now, being that my wife's from Brazil, this would be the longest of long shots ever. Okay, that my kids could go play for Brazil soccer team, national team. Okay, like the longest of long. I mean, like we put Jim Carrey on the screen. Like you're saying, I have a chance. It's one in a million. But you're saying I have a chance. Okay, I mean that's would be like. It's like, but but their parents, like my brother-in-law, he's from the Philippines. I mean, his parents are from the Philippines, so I'd imagine that his children have Philippine, kind of lineage, and so nationalism. So they could go over and possibly play for the national team in the Philippines. That's a real thing. So if you are an American citizen and your mom or dad were born, in the Philippines or whatever else, you could go play, and that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Right, and so if you said, "Well, play for U.S. men's national team or go play for the Philippines," there are some players that have that chance. They could do that, and we've seen that happen in our history. So, but again, if I pose this question, if you are a young soccer player in this country, we'll just say you're 15 years old, then I guess you're offered a contract for the LA Galaxy or a contract for Premier Team, anyone, Premier League, anyone. What contract are you taking? What contract do you sign? I would argue it's probably over 80%, but in favor of going Premier League. And that's how you know where we are. And to be fair, do that every year. Like update that every year. Do it again. Ask the next generation of player. MLS, Premier League, MLS Premier League, every year for the next 10 years. And that's how you'll know. That's when you'll know. If that number swings heavily in favor of MLS, then you'll know. Right. That's when you'll, and then that would hopefully you would imagine at that point, because again, if we're talking about a 15-year-old, they're 7 years away from the MLS and playing in it or playing in the Premier League, because you're not going to for the most part, you're not going to see a 16-year-old kid playing in the Premier League for the most part. There are going to be moments, but and things again where you'll see a kid step in who's maybe 17 or 18 years old, but for the most part, you're not going to see 16-year-olds playing in the Premier League. For the most part. So you're 20, 22 years old is where you're going to see these kids hop in. So that's a good indication. Yeah. Where are we going to be? What are we going to see? Okay. And no, the MLS is nowhere near the Premier League. We are arguably 30 years away from that. Arguably. Yep. That's my perception. That's my opinion. Take it for what it is.
Yeah, it's the history.
I think the MLS has come a long way.
Yeah.
I think that we've made strides and will continue to make those strides. And 20 years from now could be a significantly better league with more teams. Who knows what happens in the pro relegation side? Who knows all that? But for us to even be in the same ballpark as the Premier League, significant things have to happen in this country that we're not even close to doing. And so therefore, I say we're at least 30 years away from being even close to having that conversation. Yeah. Just like I still think we're 30 years away from winning a World Cup.
Yeah. It's the cultural relevance. It's everything else that plays into that. That's why I think people tend to forget, the MLS is trying to figure out a way right now as to how to keep players here. And that's the entire thing, right? How to keep them here as opposed to coming here maybe on the downturn of their career. Like, I don't put it beyond someone like Christian Pulisic, maybe at the end of his career, coming back and playing in the United States. I'd imagine he probably wouldn't mind doing something like that, but not right now, not at the height of his career, because you want to go where the game lives and breathes, which unfortunately is not here in the United States. We got a lot of great individual players. No one's ever questioning the resources that we have to develop athletes. Like, we had Jamie Gilbert on here, and he said the same exact thing. Athletically speaking, we're farther along than most of the countries that we play. I even saw it in that international friendly that we did the other day against the Mexican side in Atlas FC. Like, we look bigger, we look stronger, but the way in which we play the game and the way in which we approach the game, even the way we talk about the game, to a lot of people overseas is just, they just don't like hearing it. Like, we talk about this bias against American players. It's not necessarily against the players themselves. If you can help your club win, I don't really care. Like, you could be from Neverland. Like, I don't really think managers matter where you're from, so long as you can help the team win. But when you and I talk about this, that they just want us to realize, they're like, it's not your sport. The MLS will never catch up. And I think it's okay that we admit that maybe the MLS will never be at the level of the Premier League, because I don't think they will. I just think they had a head start on us when it comes to the history and the importance and the relevance and everything else like that. We're late catching up. And what's fascinating to me is we've actually been playing soccer in this country longer than we have been playing football. Like, the game of football, American football, was actually born out of a combination of soccer and what we know now as rugby. But it was a combination of those two that led to the birth of American football. So we've been playing it in our country for quite some time. It just hasn't carried the same cultural relevance. I can finish off with this comment. We've got a lot of viewers in here. First of all, thank you guys all for checking in today. Inside the Game, the podcast, weekdays 9 to 10 a.m. So we will be back on Monday after the conclusion of this episode. Feel free to like and subscribe to the YouTube page as well. We're live on a bunch of different places right now. Also Roku, X, Facebook, wherever you find us. But talking about the pro rel conversation, there was something else that I mentioned that really went off. I mean, sometimes I get more comments than I do likes on some of these posts. And whenever I bring up pro rel in the United States, that's when people start to really lose their cookies. Russ Rome, goes, they won't come together. Speaking of the owners for the MLS, they won't come together because pro rel is a financially poor decision. Some paid $300 million for an MLS team. Some USL teams are about to run out of money tomorrow. This is something that is worth talking about, because in the USL, they're going to try out this pro rel thing, but you talked about it, right? Not only how far away are we from winning a World Cup, but again, the cultural relevance of the sport. I don't know if that lends itself to have a pro rel system because of the diversity of financial situations. It's going to have to take rearranging. It's going to have to take a lot of work. I don't think you can just necessarily throw it in there and expect it to work logistically.
No, I mean, again, it's a sexy thing to talk about. We talk about it all the time. It's pro rel in the United States in our current system is unobtainable. It's unobtainable. It doesn't work. I talk with teams every single day. I want that to be, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, Tim Howard, they're talking with MLS teams. Okay, they're talking with players who play internationally across the pond, right? They're not talking with Fora down in Texas. They're not talking with FC Tucson or Real Central New Jersey. They're not talking with all these teams who play currently in the amateur space, right? Where right now these teams that are currently going from USL 2 to potentially USL League 1 to USL Championship to whatever, okay? And if we look at the Flint City Bucks, who are on our platform, we've had a great relationship with for years. If we look at them specifically, they are one of the best organizations in how they are run in the USL League 2. We put them top 10 across the league of well-run organizations. They house their players. They take care of them. They have an operating budget probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And they do everything they can to get players into their programs, and off they go. And they have along the way, they have sent countless players to the MLS. All right, Malik Henry just made a debut here for Toronto SC. I was calling Malik Henry's name last summer. Right, and so there's no other team that does that better than the Bucks, and they don't make any money, right? And they are one of the best. They do not make money. Now, do they break even? I don't know. I'm not in their finances, but let's just say that they don't make any money. Okay, so why do they do it? Why do they do it? Probably for many reasons, but what else are you going to do in the summer? And so when I look at the landscape of soccer in this country, all these amateur teams, there's 47 amateur teams in Michigan now, something like that play in different leagues. And then you throw on all the other ones that play in the MPSL, on the ones that play in the leagues that are kind of below the higher leagues in the state. You probably have 100 of them. You multiply that by 50 states. That's all these teams, and none of them make money. None of them. So, okay, that's the amateur space. Great. League 1, League 2, our USL Championship, MLS. Those are your three major professional leagues in this country right now. Okay? Those are the three. Now, you can talk about other leagues that are popping up, but those are the three right now on the men's side. I'm not talking about women's side. Men's side only. Those are the three. We're talking about this new USL champion, this new USL League 1, or what do you want to call it, or Tier 1 that's going to compete with the MLS. TBD. But right now, that's what we have. League 1, Championship, and we have the MLS. Those are the three. And you have a stadium in Columbus, Ohio, that seats 24,000 people, 25,000 people at Lower.com Stadium, something like that. I don't know the exact number, but it's in the mid-20s. The League One's requirements right now, I think, are anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 people. Culturally, there's a reason why Michigan University, the Wolverines, Michigan, right, U of M, has 100,000 plus seats in their stadium, right? And there's something to be said about big stadiums. Something to be said. You're not going to go to Major League Baseball Park in this country unless you're the Oakland Athletics right now, and be in a stadium that's got less than 35,000 people in it. Seats, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, whether you fill them up or not, I don't know if that's as relevant as the fact that you have a big stadium. And again, there's not a lot of teams in League 1 or in championship environment that actually own their stadiums. They're going to a stadium that's not theirs, and they use it. So, infrastructurally, not only would teams have to build their own stadiums, which in itself lies a problem.
It's a big undertaking.
Right? Where are these games played? How much money is exchanging hands? And how much does it cost? And so those were all the things that have to be considered and looked at when you're talking about pro-rel. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that it comes down to money. And it doesn't matter what the MLS owners necessarily think. This will come down to a number of things. I don't think that the USL League 1 owners or championship owners want this either. Because then now they have to pay more money. Now they have to do this. I think it's just a talking point. It's probably no different than the political landscape we are currently in, where you want to. I have a picture, and the picture says everyone interprets the picture differently.
Right?
No, it's but it comes down to money. It comes down to logistics. It comes down to culture, and it comes down to ego. And I actually think the latter will be the one that ends up dictating all this. I think ego will be the one that decides it, not money, because you're right. The owners of the MLS teams are like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no, thank you. We're good though. Appreciate you, and good luck. What are they going to do? Think the MLS is going to shut down because no, they're just not going to do it. And again, the natural thing would be to have your second tier teams in the mix. I told you that would be the natural thing. But everybody's a little different, and but yeah, that's where my thought process is on that. Whoa, I think Nathan's saying I think we're done. I think Nathan's slowing. Okay, fair enough. Cool.
It works. No, I just wanted to make sure it's still working. It might be because there's two of us. That might be it. I mean, I'm just saying.
It might. It might actually. You're actually spot on, my guy. Spot on. But no, I agree. And what we will do is this. Let's push it.
All right.
So yes, I think we can. I think we can end the show on this. And hey, episode 110 is in the books. Mailbag Friday was great. I love it. We should keep doing it. You have comments, questions, things that you want us to talk about on the show. All you got to do is drop a line in any one of our social media, National Soccer Network on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever you tune in. And we'll bring him into the show and have a conversation. You can also do it live, as we did here today as well. We want to thank you for stopping by here for 110, and we'll be back at it again on Monday. We will not be back here on Friday next week because that's July the 4th, and I'm going to go to the beach. You go to the beach? We're going to the beach.
I'll be there.
Let's go to the beach. We're going to go to the beach. No show on Friday.
Or cottage somewhere.
But we're going to do something where I'm not here in my living room or at the studio doing a podcast. No offense to the podcast. I don't know why it stopped. Maybe you stopped it. I don't know. But either way.
I'm just messing with you, man. That's all,
He's just messing
with your head over here.
Either way, we'll be back at it next week, Monday, for Inside the Game. I'm Jonathan Turner. That's Nathan Wangler. And don't forget, we will have a new intro as well. That'll be done on Monday. We'll have a new intro, new everything. Maybe even a new look and feel. We'll let you know. Either way, have a great weekend, everybody. Check out all the games we have. Tomorrow night, primetime game on Roku TV, Chicago Nation versus Round Lake Evolution. That game kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that is a playoff game for the UPSL, so why not watch it exclusively only on our Roku TV channel. But keep an eye out for that. But either way, have a great weekend, and we'll see you here next time, same place on Inside the Game.